Hi, this video tutorial is about setting up a rubric for your assignment module in Moodle. First of all, navigate to the course where you have your assignment. If you haven't watched the assignment basics video, I encourage you to do that to create an assignment according to your expectations. This video is just focused on creating rubrics and/or grading guides. So, go ahead and turn editing on. Go ahead and edit the settings of that assignment. Scroll down to grade and change to a rubric. Go ahead and click Save and Display, and that will bring you to the advanced grading interface. Notice you can define a new grading form from scratch or create one from a template. If you haven't created any rubrics before, you won't have any templates available to use, so I'd recommend that you use one from scratch. That's what we're going to do right now. I'm going to go ahead and click to find a new grading form from scratch. I'll call this Rubric 1. You can describe the rubric if you like to. It's not required. Remember, this is just a description for you. Say this is my basic rubric for writing weekly writing assignments or something like that. Then to define the rubric criterion and levels, you would click in these areas down here. So let's say that this is maybe a writing rubric, and one criteria I was going to use is grammar. At the 0 level, you should always use there is no submission. Remember that 0 means no grade, like there's no assignment at all. So that's the level that we want to say, there is no submission. I would expect a little more built-out rubric if I were going to actually use this with students. So to say poor grammar is not that great, you'll maybe want to give a little more color to say, oh, well, there are multiple errors in grammar, there are 3 or more errors, there's whatever it is that you as the teacher have an expectation of the student. I'm also going to modify the point levels here to match my expectations of what actually comes out of the other end. Remember, if somebody has a really poor assignment, for instance, in our grading scale, you want them to land at like a 60 or something like that, because we don't want to give them a really terrible grade, because the grading scale that we use, the D starts at 60. So keep that in mind as you set up your rubrics. So I've got poor grammar, average grammar, maybe I'll give that an 8. And then I'm going to add another level, and I'm going to say excellent grammar. I'm going to give that a 10. So notice what I've done here is if I leave this rubric just like it is, and I come in and I click that a student has poor grammar, they're going to get a 60%. If they have average grammar, they'll get an 80%. If they have excellent grammar, they'll get 100%. Of course, grammar is not the only thing I care about. Maybe I'm going to add another criterion by clicking that add criterion box right there. And I can say uses sources well. Again, you could type more detailed stuff in here. So I'm going to give there is no submission for 0. Poor use of sources. That's at my 6th level. Poor use of sources, or sorry, I'll make that average use of sources. Oh. And excellent use of sources. Remember, as you're making your rubric, you are the expert in what you expect from your students. So make sure that you use the rubric to reflect your intentions with what the student should do with this assignment. This is just an example of how to create a rubric. So another thing that's really important is that we can use the rubric to have different criteria and have different levels of impact on the student's grade. So I'm going to add one more criterion, and I'm going to say that style is in here. Again, there is no submission for the 0 level. And let's say that they have poor style, but I want this to count only half as much as a category style. So maybe I'll change that to 3. Poor style, average style. I'm going to change that down to 4. and then excellent style, and I'll change that down to 5. So now what I've done is grammar and sources have a total of 10 points each relative to each other, but this one at most is only worth 5. So the style is worth half as much as grammar and sources are individually. So you can use the rubric to modify which criterion have different weights relative to one another just by modifying those point values. And I'm going to add one more criterion just to show you another include a bibliography. So let's say that the bibliography is sort of a pass-fail. No bibliography. Bibliography is present. And maybe I'll give them a 10-point value for that. And then I can actually get rid of these levels here, so that if there is no bibliography, they get no points for that. If the bibliography is present, they get 10 points. So you're not locked into having a rubric that's perfectly symmetrical on every criterion. You can flexibly use that as you like. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save Rubric and make it ready. And now, when I go in to view all submissions, let's say I want to grade this Moodle student here. Now what I see is that the student, had they submitted anything, I would see it up here. I could either download the file or look at the online text, see the Assignment Basics tutorial for details on those. But now when I'm ready to grade the student, I can say, okay, you have average grammar, excellent use of sources, maybe they have poor style, and I want to give them a comment here and say, pay attention to writing complete sentences or something like that. And then let's say they had a bibliography, and I still have that overall grade that I can give the student. Now, one thing that I want to point out is that the sum of these grades, 8 points, 18 points, 21 points, 31 points. So the sum of all of the grades I've given in the rubric is only 31 points. But the grade in the grade book is still going to be scaled to the maximum grade. So you'll notice that because I have the maximum grade set to 100, even though there's only 31 points on the assignment, that doesn't matter. It's not like the grade that goes in the grade book is only 31 points. The grade that goes into the grade book is the percentage of points available in the rubric, the same percentage of the maximum grade that we set during our assignment setup. So when you make a rubric, you don't have to worry about lining up the grades that your expectations with the maximum grade. The grade values in the rubric are decoupled from the maximum grade of the assignment. So you could just use the points in the rubric to make the different criterion of differing values relative to one another. So I'm going to actually go and look at the student's grade in the gradebook just to show you what that looks like. I'll go to Course Management. I'll go to Gradebook. I'm going to use the user report, and I'll select Moodle Student in this drop-down because that's who I just graded. And then you'll see, remember I wrote overall grade in those comments. This is those open-ended answers you have at the end. And then the student will see that they got this grade. So the rubric, now that I've applied it, automatically spits it out and sends it right into the gradebook for me. It's a really great way to manage grading expectations in the assignment module. So I'm going to show you one other advanced grading technique. I'm going to head back into this assignment. Again, you could get to this just from going to the front of the course. And let's say that I want to edit settings for this assignment, just like we did in the beginning. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change the grade to a grading guide. I'll go ahead and click Save and Display. And now, again, now that I'm changing the grading guide, I have to define a new grading form from scratch. And this is like a rubric. Again, maybe I'll call this Weekly Grading Guide. Remember, I'm naming the grading guide, not the assignment. I could add a description if I wanted to. But now we have a little bit different interface here. So I could click to edit the criterion name. I'll call this Style. The description for students says how well you use the language to support your points. Again, please be more articulate than I am being just for this demonstration. This is the description for graders. You can probably leave this blank unless you have TAs or someone using this grading guide for you. That description for graders is for people that are actually grading the assignment. If you're the only one grading, you don't need to leave anything in here. All right, and maximum score. Let's say I want to give them a score on a scale of 1 to 10 for style. Now I'm going to add a criteria here. We'll call this grammar. Again, how well you use the grammar of the English language. I would encourage you to be more articulate so that students have a better idea of what your expectations are. I'm just putting this in here for purposes of demonstration. Again, I'm going to give them a maximum score of 10. The other thing about the grading guide that's really convenient is that you can use frequently used comments. So I'm going to add a frequently used comment, and I'm going to put in, I see you did not use enough sources. Please remember to cite at least 5 scholarly works. Let's say that was my expectation for every writing assignment, that they cite 5 scholarly works. If you have a frequently used comment that you want to edit, so I just have to click on it to edit it. See, so I've got one here. Maybe I want to say, great work. I am proud of how well you are doing. It's a little positive comment there. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save Grading Guide and make it ready. And now, when I go in to grade a student, see, I'm going to view all submissions here. And I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to find this Carol student right here. I'll click Grade. Now you'll notice that the interface is a little bit different. So I can make an open-ended remark about style. I could just tell them that something about that. Or what I could do is I could insert frequently used comment here. Maybe I want to use this one. I see you did not use enough sources. Please remember to cite at least 5 scholarly works. Maybe they didn't do so well. I'll give them a 5 out of 10 here. And maybe they did really well on grammar. I'll give them a 10 out of 10. I don't need to add anything else there. And then I could add a frequently used comment here. Maybe they say, great work. I'm proud of how well you're doing in this course. So this sort of shortens the time it takes for me to give subjective feedback to students, assuming that I'm sort of saying the same thing over and over again to students. You want to save yourself a little time. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save Changes. And then we'll see that, again, the student got a 75 because that's the percentage of the points that they got. They got a 15 out of 20. And so remember, even though there's 20 points available here, the grading guide is going to scale that up to 75% because remember, we set the maximum grade for this assignment to 100. See the original assignment basics tutorial to have a look at how that works. So that concludes this tutorial on the setting up rubrics and grading guides in the Moodle assignment module. If you have any questions or difficulties, feel free to contact me. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and as always, happy Moodling.